Two guys and a mic, Jim Ryan along with Mark Rizzo. I've lost track of how many episodes we're up to, but this is a special one. We've got a great guest today. Mark, do it. Go for it.
I want to introduce my good personal and very talented friend, Mr. Dave Koz.
Welcome, Dave. Welcome.
Jazz instrumentalist of the world.
Dave,
I've been
I just hope you know, Dave, how big we are now. We started on YouTube, but now we're everywhere. Spotify, Apple, Pandora, Stitcher. You can find this podcast, Two Guys and a Mic with the number 2, anywhere. Like, subscribe for free, and ring that notification bell. Okay,
There
I've
you
done
go.
the business.
You got to say that by law.
Well, I've heard about this podcast for a very, very long time, and it is finally here. I'm honored to be here. Great to see you guys. Thank you, Jim and Mark, for inviting me.
Appreciate you doing it. All right, Mark, let's go.
Well, let me just jump in by saying we had a friend of yours, a friend of mine on yesterday, Peter Sincotti, who spoke nothing but wonderful things about you. He said you were great. And then I had to tell him he was on the wrong cruise because he said he went on the Chris Bodie cruise. I said, that's the wrong cruise. You need to go on a Dave Koz cruise. But I think he said he did your first one. Is that possible?
He did it a number of years ago. Yeah, I've been knowing Peter since he was a kid, since he was a high school, actually.
Yep, he told me. I think he said part of the Grammy band or something.
Right, he was in. He auditioned and won a place as a piano player in the Grammy High School All-Star Band, which was a big deal. I'm not even sure if they continue to do that, but way back when, and I was one of the sort of advisors that they brought in to work with the kids for one day, and I checked this kid out, and he was like, I knew then that he was going to be somebody. You know, sometimes you can just see kids, especially that have that thing. It's hard to put into words, but he had that thing. So it's nice to see his success happen.
Yeah, he's been doing well, and I've had the opportunity, like with your projects, to work on some of his stuff. And he's a good, talented guy. And I was teasing him that he was first known as a child prodigy, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Child prodigy.
Not
at age 3.
Yes, I can't say that about me or you. I don't know Jim well enough to know whether he was a child prodigy, but I know for sure you weren't, and I wasn't.
No, but I did tell him that I could tie my shoes without looking at them. So I thought that was a talent. But anyway, let's talk seriously, because you really are. Because when I was working Arista back in the days when I first met you, and you were everywhere working radio, you were at conventions, and we got friendly, and I would tease you that you were no Kenny G. But, and no offense to Kenny G, but you certainly have taken that throne over. I mean, that's why you are the sax man. You really have made, I mean, there's nobody else. There's Dave Koz, and that's it.
Well, you know, that's very sweet of you to say that, because Kenny's not here. If Kenny was here, you'd probably say the same thing to him.
Oh, I'd say he's great. The hell with Dave Koz. No, but seriously, I mean, what you do is difficult enough in that, specific form of music, but to excel and be at the top of it through all the other things you do. I mean, you could obviously connect with Jim. You had a radio show for many years as well.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, first of all, I want to say thank you to you guys for having an instrumentalist on your show, because we're a little bit of a, we're a sideline. Instrumental music is certainly not as popular as vocal music. But I do believe, I've been an advocate for instrumental. Obviously, I play saxophone, and I don't sing. You don't want to hear me sing. But I think, being an advocate for the great music that is made in the instrumental music space, and now it's really become so interesting and so vast with all these young, wonderful musicians that are making music in this space. And I think that there's a chance for everybody to have, that moment in the week. We all listen now to music in a lot of ways as mood music. So there's instrumental music allows the listener to paint their own picture. You're not saying this is what this song is about. We're kind of giving you an open canvas to paint your own picture on, and I think that that's a very valuable thing. So thank you for including me in your show as an instrumentalist.
Sure. Can I ask, Dave, what drew you to the saxophone? Of all the instruments that were out there as your kid, what was it about the saxophone that's the one I want to play?
Well, I wish that there was like this moment of big inspiration, but it was a commercial one, because my older brother, incredible musician growing up, and he and his buddies had this band that was playing weddings and bar mitzvahs, fraternity parties. My brother's about 4 years older than me, and so I just wanted to be in that band. Of course, I didn't play any instrument at the time. And he basically said to me in no uncertain terms, "You're never, ever getting into this band." He was kind of like that big brother. But one day he let it slip and this was in the 70s, right? Later 70s, and he let it slip that they didn't have a saxophone player, and the only way that I would ever be able to get in the band is if I played saxophone. It was also at a time when every pop record had a saxophone solo, and they didn't have a saxophone player, so they were kind of out of step and out of touch with what the popular music of the day was. So I heard that, and I was going into seventh grade. I was 13. I picked up the sax, and I just practiced my butt off every single day, driving my brother crazy. And 2 years later, I think just to get me off his back, he said, okay, come to this wedding. It was a wedding in Woodland Hills, California, very close to where I grew up. And I got paid $10 to be in the band that night. And I guess I did a good job because they kept inviting me back the next weekend and the weekend after that. And eventually
Nice.
I became a full-fledged member. And that was it. That's how I got started.
So which famous sax players inspired you?
I think number one for me was always David Sanborn. And, I think that there's always that, you can listen to a broad variety of players that each have their own personality. And I did that a lot. I listened to such a wide variety, both on soprano and tenor and alto. But I think David Sanborn really was like the pinnacle for me. I worship that guy. Listened to every single lick on every single record. I just wanted to be David Sanborn, and I met him early on. I was in high school when I got a chance to meet him, like a friend of a friend of a cousin of a friend. I wound up backstage at the Universal Amphitheater in Los Angeles, and I met him, and I was a blumbering fool. And I want to be exactly like you. Just, I know all your legs. And he's like, stop, let me be me. You figure out who you are musically and do that and let me be me. And it was great advice. I was kind of like shocked at the time, but in retrospect, I think it was some of the best career advice I ever heard.
Well, that's pretty cool that he just didn't blow you off as a young guy kind of fawning after him and say, yeah, thank you very much. He actually gave you a bit of advice that stuck with you.
Well, and also it was interesting because I got a chance to meet him many years later at the Bill Clinton inauguration, where they had this.
All the sax players, right? Remember
Yeah,
that? Yeah.
and everybody was there. I was like, and somehow I got invited. My first record just came out on Capitol, and I was invited. And so now of course, he didn't remember meeting me earlier because it was many years later. And now David Sanborn on the bus back from a rehearsal, he says to me, "Hey, Dave, would you mind like trying this? I have this new mouthpiece out. I just want to hear what you have to say about it." And I'm like, Sorry.
Go ahead. Oops.
Are you fucking kidding me? This is David Sanborn, who I worshipped, for so many years, and now is asking me for my opinion on his equipment. It was like very surreal. And we
Wow.
became really good friends. We did one tour together. I got up the nerve many years later and asked him to do a summer tour with me. It was called Side by Side. And if you look online, I kid you not, every picture of that tour is the same basic picture. It's David Sanborn, head cocked, eyes closed, looking so cool, blowing the saxophone. And then you can see me on the side of him going, oh my God, I'm on tour with David Sanborn. It's like, there's not one good picture of me from that tour because I was just fawning the whole time. But especially since he passed away last year. Actually, we were on our cruise, our 2024 cruise, when we were doing a saxophone event when we got news that he had passed away, and it was like very surreal and chilling because here was this news, and I knew that he wasn't doing so well, but I didn't know, that he was going to pass away. And we were all together, this whole brotherhood of saxophone players. There was like eight of us saxophone players doing a sax event on one of the cruises, and it was really powerful. So we just harnessed that energy, that David Sanborn energy, and went out there. And for the rest of the night, it was just a complete celebration of his life. And it's really been gratifying to see so many tributes to him and the music that he made, because he really was the bridge. He was one of those rare people that was able to come from another era of music and bring the saxophone into the contemporary era of with album after album of hit songs and great melodies and unbelievable playing. He was the king of the alto saxophone in the modern era.
Yeah, but also that did move you up in ranking too. So I mean,
I
hey,
keep telling him, Dave, he's got to go on stage somewhere, some open mic night, and see if it can make people laugh. He makes me laugh all the time. So,
but Dave, okay, so you're in your brother's band, you learned to play the saxophone, you kind of taught yourself, you put the saxophone teacher out of work because you figured you could do it yourself. And then how do you get signed to like Capitol Records and all that? Because you've played with like everybody, including my favorite Rod Stewart and everybody else.
Well, I graduated college. I was a mass communications major at UCLA because I was really
Nice.
convinced that I was not, I had no idea that music would be my life. I had no confidence that I was good enough to, nor did I have the drive or the desire to be an artist. It never even dawned on me. I was so kind of like a wallflower and very shy, and I was very awkward and geeky as a kid, all through high school and college. And I never thought that that would be my life. And my parents, the day that I graduated from college, my parents, who were both in the medical field, my dad was a doctor and my mom was a pharmacist, and they said, you know, Jewish family, there's a certain expectation about the kids, and I had no plan. I graduated with zero to do. I was just playing gigs on the weekends, weddings and stuff. And so I made a deal with them. I said, I'm going to try music for 6 months and see what I can drum up. And if I can't, then I'll just get a job eventually. And 2 weeks after that, I got a call from Bobby Caldwell, the incredible singer. And Bobby was putting a band together in Los Angeles, and I auditioned and I got the gig. And that was
Nice.
like a who's who. Everybody came to those shows that we did in Los Angeles. And
wow.
from Bobby, I met a guy named Jeff Lorber, the
Sure.
great
Yeah.
He's
guitarist,
signed to Arista.
right? And Kenny G got his start in Jeff Lorber's band, and
Yep.
I met Lorber, and he said I auditioned for his band. I got the gig, and in that first day that I met him, he said, "I want to start doing some demos with you. I think that you should be your own recording artist. You should make your own albums." And up until that point, nobody had ever said that to me, nor had I ever thought it would be possible. So Jeff Lorber changed my life. We made a demo on cassette, and that cassette wound its way up to New York, to Bruce Lundvall's office at Capitol Records.
A gentleman, one of the best executives ever.
Of all time, you're right. He was the true gentleman in the music business. And I don't know why. I'm not sure exactly why, but he said, I'm going to take a chance on this guy and sign him to Capitol as a pop artist, not on Blue Note as a jazz artist,
Right.
which he also oversaw. But he said, I believe this guy is a pop artist, and we're going to give him the Capitol Records treatment. And next thing I knew, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, so I would drive by the Capitol Records, that round iconic tower. I'd drive by on the Hollywood freeway, and I would think to myself, somewhere in that building is a piece of paper with my name on it. It blew me away that Capitol Records would be releasing my music, and my first album came out in 1990, and it took off, and here we are all these years later, almost 35 years later.
Such an iconic building. And have you ever recorded in that studio, which is an
Yeah.
iconic,
Yeah.
obviously, studio? Yeah.
Many, many times. Done so many different types of projects there as a sideman, part of a horn section. I've recorded a lot of my music there as well. The great Al Schmidt, who was one of the most Grammy decorated engineers and producers of all time, and Phil Ramone. We made a record there called At the Movies, which was my chance to take the saxophone to some of the most beautiful melodies from the world of motion pictures. And all of that record was recorded right there at Capitol Studio A. I mean, just the microphones alone, Jim, the microphones that you're playing
Yeah.
into could have been the microphone that Frank Sinatra sang into. It's like
Wow.
that kind of legendary status.
Yeah.
As you're walking down, have you guys been there? You've been
Yeah.
there.
I've been
I
there.
worked at Capitol. Yeah, I was there.
Oh yeah,
once or
that's
twice.
right. So you're walking down the hallway and you're seeing these black and white
Pictures.
pictures
Yeah.
of these
Dean
artists.
Martin, everybody.
And so you're feeling smaller and smaller and smaller as you walk down the hall, and you realize, oh, Shit, I better come with my A game because all these people have recorded here.
It's incredible. Two guys and a mic. It's Jim Ryan and Mark. We're here with our special guest, Dave Koz. Please like, subscribe. It costs you nothing. Find us not only on YouTube, our home. We're now on Stitcher, Amazon, Spotify, pretty much anywhere you can get a
Everywhere.
podcast. Just search two guys with the number two and a mic. Dave is our special guest. I wanted to ask you basically about your process. I mean, every song writer or composer has a process. Do you start with a melody? What is it for you that gets a new song started for you?
It usually is a melody that's coming from my brain that needs, it's sort of like, it feels like it's knocking, in the most perfect scenario, it's a melody that feels like it's knocking inside of my head wanting to get out. And sometimes I think my confidence has always been a little lackluster when it comes to songwriting. I always feel like, and I love to collaborate, so it kind of plays into the things that I really love, to work with other songwriters and artists.
Yeah.
But sometimes I feel like these melodies, is it good enough? Is this right? But in my purest moments, Jim, where I can tell you one thing, we have this new album that is coming out, this Bob James duo album with Bob James, a legendary pianist. And so was Bob on piano and me on saxophone. These were live recordings that we did in his studio, actually in his living room in Traverse City. But one of these melodies, I was flying to Saudi Arabia. I had been asked to go play a big concert there as one of the soloists with an orchestra. And as I was flying, this was one of the longest flights I've ever been on. It was 16 or 17 hours. And I could not get this melody out of my head. And I was really in bad shape, because it was just like I was in this feedback loop of this melody.
Yeah.
I was trying to sleep and trying to pass the time, the 16 hours. But that melody became one of the songs on this album. It's called Rue de Rivoli. And when I played it for Bob, he's like, I love that melody. And he figured out the chords, and there it was. So, in those moments where you do get that inspiration, it's important for me to just kind of trust it. Okay, this is Buddy wanting to say hello for a second, I think.
Okay.
Well, we know about Buddy. We love Buddy. He is the road dog, as you said.
Buddy, come
Yeah,
here.
pretty good timing with that squeaky toy.
Well,
Kind of accentuated what you just said.
That's the melody now in his head. He'll hear that.
I think that
There you go.
that toy might have been one that you gave to him, Mark.
Nice. Look at that dog, huh?
Look at
Buddy,
We
him.
love the dog.
Go to everybody. He's looking at his mommy right now. Loves his
Hey,
mommy.
buddy.
This is
cute.
Buddy Boy Koz.
I saw you posted a beautiful picture of you and him on your Facebook page.
He's so handsome, isn't he? He's a handsome boy.
Cute
Beautiful
dog.
boy.
Sheds,
Nice.
there's no tomorrow though.
He what?
Sheds. Look.
Oh, that
yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
So, David, if your brother needed a drummer in the band, would you have been playing the drums?
Probably.
So it wasn't like you had the love for the saxophone. It was a need. You filled it, and you built a career out of it.
It's funny they should ask that, because I played piano at the very beginning. Like 7 years old, my mom forced us the three kids to play the piano. I hated the piano, and I rebelled. I asked my mom and dad to take drum lessons, and so I was probably around 10. And I remember when my dad came to pick me up from my drum lesson, I overheard the drum teacher saying to my dad, loudly actually, you might want to think about sports for Dave, because it's just not going to happen with the drums. I was crushed. I was like, okay, 2 down. What's gonna happen? But that's, it's an interesting lesson too, because I hear from young people, and also people that have, adults that want to take up instruments and have tried other things and it didn't work. I said, keep trying to find your instrument, because it took me until I was 13, and I tried 2 other instruments that didn't connect with me. And it was really the saxophone that, for whatever reason, I found my voice. I was as I mentioned before, I was a very awkward kid. I grew up gay in a time when you couldn't really be who you were. You kind of had to hide and wear masks. And the saxophone was like, at just the right time, it was like a lifeline. I could hold on to this instrument and put all these emotions that I was feeling. I didn't have a place to get them out. I couldn't talk about it. I was like a stranger in my own family, and the
Yeah.
saxophone became kind of my best friend. And so the connection there was made between me and the instrument. And I think that's probably, if I could say why, because I'm not really, honestly, I'm not really a very proficient saxophone player. I love the instrument and I know that what I do well on it, but there are people that blow circles around me. But I think in the DNA of my sound is that kind of universal feeling of you know, life, and life and its trials and tribulations. And whatever I was dealing with at that time in my life, I put all of that through the saxophone. And I think now that's, if people hear my sound, that they can identify with that, because everybody goes through trials and tribulations in their lives.
That harsh critic, like your drum teacher, sounds like J.K. Simmons character from that movie. What was
It's,
that? I That was
yeah,
disturbing, that movie.
yeah, I
Got
don't,
the name of that. I know what you mean.
Whiplash, I think.
That's it, Whiplash. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
In
that
f-
was every high school band member's nightmare, to think about a guy like that as your teacher. I had great teachers. Mrs. Brown in seventh grade, all through junior high school, middle school, and then Mr. Camp, who he was a saxophone player as well. He was a bitter guy, bitter, 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 but he loved me. I don't know why. He just loved. He took a liking to me and he nurtured me, and he just like gave me a lot of confidence in my high school years as well. So
I experienced the same in sports on the football field with coaches that were like brutal, in high school, like coach running along with you and helping you tackle somebody and made you do it over and over again. And, sometimes it's a good thing, but sometimes it can be, when you're a kid, it's not so good.
I,
Well, I experienced that with my parents. They were very brutal. In fact, till I was 5 years old, I thought my name was Little Bastard because that's how they referred to me. So that's apparently how we all have to face our challenges. But what I did want to say when we speaking to Peter yesterday, and it's something I've asked other artists, I asked him when he hears someone like a Billy Joel or Elton John playing the piano or Manilow or something like that, can you see that you're better or they're better than you or they do things differently? But he was very, he was complimentary to them. So when you hear other saxophone players, do you say, that guy's better than me? I'm better than him. I hear what he's doing. Does everybody have their own spot that they're all equally, obviously talented people?
I think if everybody has a chance to be who they are in music, and I've maybe had a little bit more judgmental side as I was coming up, and now that I've gotten to this place in my life at almost 62, I really learned to appreciate uh, anybody's take on music. Music is so subjective. What one person likes and another person likes. How can you say if somebody actually is liking the musician that's playing on the street, whatever, and you say to yourself, "Oh, that's, subpar," but some person is really loving it, well then it's great. It's great for that person. It might not be great for me, but it's great for that person. And I think that now we're living in such a democratic area of the music business where anybody that can record something, and recording equipment now is so inexpensive that you can do it in your bathroom and with one button have international distribution. Mark, you're a
Mhm.
record company executive, so in your past life you've seen record companies and how much power that they do have, and they still do it, have that power to amplify somebody that's doing something. But now you can have your music have international.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's
Very
no
little entry to barrier, no barrier to entry, so to speak.
right.
Yesterday, talking to Peter Sincati, one thing he did say that amazes him is, he writes a song and it comes from a personal feeling of his, but to have other people come up and say, "Oh, that song helped me get through this," or "That song did this for me," it's just mind blowing to him that such a personal thing that he decided to create and put out has that kind of connection with people. Do you feel the same when people come up and say to you about your music?
Well, sometimes, Jim, I don't know how to handle it. It's that I think that that's one of the things that's strange, and maybe Peter is talking about that feeling of like, because it does come, the music, where does it come from? It comes from a very personal space and
Hmm.
a place that is so kind of inside of you, and then you somehow, through some mechanism, get it out, and then it has a life of its own. It becomes meaningful to other people in ways that you could never even imagine.
Right.
Sometimes when you get that feedback, I had it the other day. We did this benefit for the victims of the LA fires, and our community got together. There was over 50 recording artists and musicians that got together, and it was brought together and planned. My buddy Michael Paolo is another wonderful saxophone player, and me planned it out. We called everybody, everybody showed up, and sold out. We raised almost $200,000 in one
Nice.
afternoon. But because it was so relaxed, there was no barrier between the audience and all of us musicians. So we were just kind of all hanging out for an afternoon.
Right.
It was one after the other of these people, these fans, these very loyal people that have listened to my music for years, and one after the other with these very personal stories about specific songs that meant something very deep and meaningful to them that I could have never imagined. And so, a day of that kind of makes you feel like, wow, sometimes you just don't know how to respond. But ultimately, it is the greatest feeling in the world as a musician and as an artist.
That's nice.
Interesting.
So Dave, if I'm a rock star or I'm Rod Stewart, how do they contact you? They say, hey, we've got a spot on a song. We need a saxophone player. You want to join us? And do you say, well, you got to pay me $300,000 and I'll do it? Or how, or I mean, how does it go that they just ask you what your input is to that particular song or what you can add to it, or they give you the sheet music and say, play this?
Well, in the instance of Rod Stewart, that was I played on all of his Great American Songbook albums, and they
Nice.
were produced by different people. I know Phil Ramone was a part of that. Steve Tyrell was a part of that. There were a few others, I believe. And I guess I just got called to on the first one to do a few saxophone solos, and we were working with those were Clive Davis projects, and that was the first time that I'd ever worked for Clive, and I had heard about it, and so I was on my had all my P's and Q's going on, and so I knew that, and the producers would say, we want this solo to be pretty straight because Clive really likes it. Kind of just play the melody. Just play the melody and we'll be cool. Every single time that I did it, it was amazing because I played it as straight as I possibly could. And then there was a note back from Clive. It needs to be straighter. It needs to be out.
Wow.
I know those notes. Did he use his purple
Yeah.
pen that he used to love? That's funny.
But it was really an interesting exercise. And that's, I could say from as a musician being asked to play on other people's records, you have to be a chameleon. You have to be flexible. There are some producers who say, just go for it. Whatever you think, I trust you, and we'll go with that. And then there are other producers who say, I have a very specific need for this song, and I want this solo to fulfill that, and here's how we're going to build it. And
Interesting.
so you kind of just have to be, as a studio musician, you have to really have that flexibility.
Is there
So
any? Oh,
when you're
go ahead,
done
Mark.
doing it, I mean, obviously, I guess the artist isn't in the room. You're just there with the musicians. So when you're done and completed, you get like a note back from Rod. Hey, I love what you did to the singles, or no? Does he send you a card? Does he do anything?
No, but I did get a call from his manager at the time. And I can't remember the guy's name. What was the guy's
Right,
name?
he retired now.
Uh,
I wanted to say Arnie, but it's not Arnie. I forget his name.
yeah. Anyway, so he called and he
Oh,
said,
was it Arnold? No, I don't. I forgot what his
Arnold,
name was. Or
Stiefel,
Arnold? Yeah,
Arnold
Arnold. Yeah.
Stiefel. And so got a call from the management office saying that Rod is going to do a few TV shows to promote the record, and he would like you to be a part of the band. And so I think we did a Tonight Show. I think we did a American Music Awards. We did a few
Nice.
together for the promotion, and I was like, I'd never met him before, and I was like blown away. This is my first experience of really seeing what a rock star
Mm,
like. And
Right.
he was very nice. He was super nice, super respectful, and very kind. But man, it was really cool to just see life through Rod Stewart's eyes for a couple of weeks. It was
He's pretty
so
cool.
absolutely rock star status.
Did
Well,
he insist you kick soccer balls around?
He did
exactly.
not.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story. When I got to meet him, when we were promoting one of his records, and Universal was kind enough to bring me out to LA, and we had a listening party. And I forgot how it came up, but I told him I had worked with Barry. He said, and I can't do his accent, but he said that he had obviously that he loves Barry, blah blah blah. He said, please tell Barry the story that one night after a show, he was meeting some guests backstage, and I think he said I had a little something to drink, so I was a little bit tipsy, but I remember this young lady came up to me and said it was a great show, but you forgot to do Copacabana. He said, please tell Barry that story. So that's pretty funny. But all the stuff I've heard, he's pretty straight up, kind of a cool guy. But I think he does miss his manager, because I think Arnold kept everything in line, and we had some stuff we had to get done with him on this last project that just became a nightmare. But we did finally get it done. But he seems to be like a down to earth kind of a guy. So that's kind of cool.
What a career! And you know our connection, Mark, between us and the Manilow camp, and Barry's a great friend and also huge inspiration to me as an artist. I mean, these guys have such staying power, and you know, I look at my career and I am so grateful, and I feel incredibly blessed to be able to do something for this long and still enjoy it and still push myself musically and bring the audience with us. But those guys, I mean, Manilow at 82, I think,
I believe
and
so.
still selling out everywhere, and massive amounts of energy, and still seemingly enjoying what he does. You can say the same about Stevie Wonder. I mean, we have so many icon. Johnny Mathis,
Yeah,
in
he's
his
still up there.
late 80s, still out there killing it, doing shows. So these are my inspirations for my career, to keep going, to keep challenging yourself and the audience. And there's a lot of people that you can point to that are doing that still.
But the one
It's
thing about Stevie Wonder was he doesn't see anybody backstage, and I always thought that was an issue.
He,
I got 100 of these. I'll just roll them
Den-
out. You just let me
Dennis
know
is
which one you
laughing
want.
at your jokes, and don't
This
laugh.
is why we're
Don't
big in
encourage
South
him.
Korea with this podcast. Very big in South Korea.
two guys and a mic with our special guest, Dave Koz. Like us, subscribe. Maybe you can like Mark's humor, and he'll get a show, a set at the Improv. Uh, we're on everything from Spotify to Pandora to Stitcher and Amazon, as well as YouTube, and ring the notification bell so you get notified. Dave, I wanted to ask, is there anybody you'd love to collaborate with that you haven't had a chance yet?
For sure. There's so many artists that I think that the younger artists that I really I've sort of feel like I've gotten to this level where a big part of my life seems to be mentorship and talking to younger musicians, especially younger instrumentalists. And I think there's such an incredible, vast, incredible amount of talent that is coming up, the next generation of instrumentalists. But in terms of like the people that you know, I've never we brought him up earlier today, Billy Joel. I wore out all that music. I love that's like the soundtrack to my life. I've never met Billy Joel. To play one of those saxophone solos live with him one day, that would be a dream come true. And a guy like Sting, who I worshiped growing up and still do musically. I never got a chance. I met him a couple times, but I never got a chance to play music with him. That would also be a dream come true.
So if Bruce called, would you go do Born to Run?
1,000% I would. You know, I did get a chance to have the rock star life with the Foo Fighters. I played on one of their albums.
Oh, wow.
And he's one of your good friends too, isn't he?
Yeah, Dave Grohl is actually, I know this sounds crazy, but he happens to be my godson.
He is
Your
so
godson.
talented. He is so talented.
Wow.
Incredible talent. And So this is a number of years ago when he finally called and he said, "Don't you think it's about time that you played on a Foos record?" And I said, "Yes, I've
Wow.
been waiting for this call for a very long time." And so I went into the studio. It was insane. It was so exciting and so different for me. And then they asked if I would play a number of shows with them, which I did. And I remember doing a run at Madison Square Garden, sold out run at Madison Square Garden, and playing in that band a few songs during their set. It was like driving the fastest car you could ever imagine possible. It was like being in a rocket ship.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a
Playing
good
saxophone.
experience. Pretty cool.
He's
I
done
hear
some
good
really
things
cool
about
things.
him.
Yeah, he's
I
done.
hear he's a good guy.
He
Now,
brings up.
how are you his godson? If I can interrupt Jim for 1 second, how did that work out?
This is a lot of years ago. It's probably like 20 years ago, and I met him and his wife Jordan, at a very dear friend. She had a small cocktail party at her house. Jordan, his wife, is the first cousin of my friend, and so she invited me to this. There was like 10 people at the party, and Dave and Jordan were pregnant with their first kid. She was very pregnant at the time, and so I was just happened to be talking with them, and I said, "Do you have a godfather picked out for the baby?" And I was talking to Dave at the time, and Dave said, "What's a godfather? I've heard the term, but I don't really know what it is." And I said, "Well, godfather is like, this is part of the baby's life, and you watch them grow up. They're part of everything that you do. Uh, They were a huge part of my life. I could talk to my godmother about things that I could never talk to my mom about, for example. That special relationship, if you let it
Yeah.
be." So we were talking to different people. About an hour later, Dave comes up to me alone, and he said, "I talked it over with Jordan. We're not going to do a godparent situation for our baby, but would you be interested in being my godfather?" And I knew he was like, kind of had a little twinkle in his eye, and I said, "Dave, you can't joke about this stuff. If you're serious about this, yes. The answer is yes. But we're going to have to make this an official thing. We don't have to do a blood handshake, but we have to handshake, and that means that you have to be a part of my life, and I am going to be a part of your life. We need to call each other on our birthdays. We need to take each other out. You need to be at certain special events and that sort of thing." And he said, I would love to do that. And so we embraced, and from that day on, that was the relationship.
Nice.
Wow. And now
Wow.
you get to tell him about this podcast. How about that, huh?
And
Yeah,
next week's guest.
yes. Can we get Dave? Hook up
That's
Dave.
unbelievable. That's very cool. That's a
I
great
mean,
story.
considering everything he's been through professionally, doing the Nirvana thing, and then when Kurt passed away, and then, Foo Fighters was so successful, and then they had tragedy with Taylor passing away, and he still keeps the band going. That is a lot to undertake in one career, and still make incredible music like they do.
Yeah, and he's also, obviously, if anybody, your listeners, know if you're reading the news that he's had a pretty interesting last year,
Hmm.
personally, and he took that very, very seriously. And I've had talks with him about it, and he's trying. He is in his core a very, very good human being. I've seen him in public, just not being, not on and not as Dave Grohl, the superstar, just him out in public with people, and he treats everybody the same. He's a naturally curious and kind and gentle and generous person in his core. So that's the Dave that I know, and that's the Dave that I think the world hears through his music.
I love when he
Nice.
brings up, there's videos all over YouTube. I love when he brings up really young musicians who know the Foo Fighters songs, whether it's guitar or drums, and he just lets them rip, and he just has a blast with it. Like, it's really cool. You can see he gets excited about seeing younger musicians do that, you know.
It's the thing where I think if you get to a certain age and your music has been embraced by segments of the population, and then you can see it's kind of goes back to what you were talking about before, Jim, which is um, not just the fans, but also other musicians uh, really responding to what you do and having it influence what they do. And I love talking, again, back to the mentorship. I love talking to young saxophone players who are taking the mantle that we established, that I took from, say, for example, David Sanborn. He established this thing. I was able to take some of that, and it influenced where I took the music. And now young saxophone players are taking what we did, this whole generation of that has just passed the last 30 years, and taking what we did and moving it to the next generation of instrumental music lovers. And that's the
It's
thing
very
that
cool.
I love to see. That's probably the thing that drives me the most right now in my life.
That's very cool. One more Dave Grohl note. If you haven't watched his induction of Rush into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, when him and Taylor inducted Rush, go look at that on Google. It might be one of the best inductions anybody ever did for the Hall of Fame, and
Wow.
how much homage they paid to those three guys. You know,
Wow. Okay. I have not seen that.
basically Dave talking about growing up as a kid and opening up their album 2112 for the first time and then just wearing it out. You know, so you can see not only is he such a talented musician, he is truly just a fan of music. You know.
Well, a lot of the documentary stuff that he's done on the road, in the studio, with that one studio, I don't know if you saw it, the studio that had the famous board that
Yeah.
so classic music was recorded on, that he bought.
Yeah, the analog studio. Yeah,
Right. He didn't just buy it and start recording his music. He did a whole thing where he talked about all the music that was made on this one console.
right.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
was insane. And the fact that he was able to bring that to the public is so cool.
Well, it's very cool that he put you on one of his records. Maybe you'll be on more, or he can be on yours.
There you go.
Okay. Let's see what that sounds like. As
Speaking
Grohl.
of speaking of Godfathers, I brought a tear to my eye because my Godfather is doing 10 to 15, but he'll be out soon. We're hoping for the best with that. But Dave, before we let you go, because you are a very busy saxophone player, and I wanted to plug your project, your tour. I know you mentioned you're going to be on the road with Bob James, correct?
We are. We have 6 shows across America, and this was a very fun and surprising project. We didn't actually set out to make an album. I had very brief story. I had asked Bob, a legendary musician and a huge inspiration to me growing up. I'd asked him to be one of the artists on a brand new cruise brand that we started last September called Soma. It was a luxury 600 passenger cruise, and I thought he would be perfect. So I called him up and I said, "Would you do it?" And he said, "I will, under one condition. I want you and I to record 2 songs that just for these 600 people." And I said, "Great idea, done." I went to Traverse City and we recorded those 2 songs. That actually came out. We pressed a 7-inch vinyl recording of those 2 songs that 600 passengers got, and that's it. But
Nice.
when we did it, both Bob and I felt like we weren't finished yet. And I said, "Can I come back and do more with you?" And I went back about 2 months later. We recorded more songs, and then we did one more session in Los Angeles. And here was this album that turned up. We didn't plan on it. And the idea of it was to have 2 musicians come together. We both have made a lot of records. We've had a lot of success. He's over 20 years older than me, has more brain cells and more going on than I do. And I was so blown away and inspired by working with him. And I felt this incredible freedom too, because we were not constrained by drum tracks or rhythm section or bells and whistles. It was just piano and saxophone breathing together. And I'm very proud of this album. And it's called
Wow.
Just Us. And we have 6 shows to do it. And it's just us on stage as well, which is something that neither of us have ever done before as well.
So where are the 6 shows? What cities? Where are you doing these?
We'll be in Seattle. We'll be in Minneapolis. We'll be in Chicago, Phoenix, and our first show is like a warm-up show is in Traverse City, where Bob lives, at a theater called the Alluvion. And then we're doing a show, an invited guest show, invited guests to the Grammy Museum in the middle.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
How
So
about
where's
the cruises? Wait,
Yeah, where's the next big cruise? That's what I was going to ask.
The next cruise is this June, June 7th, and then again June 14th, and it is our Netherlands, Norway, and Iceland cruise.
Whoa.
This
Wow.
is on the big ship. It's the flagship of Holland America's line. It's called the Rotterdam, and we have about I'd say about 4,800 people, mostly
Wow.
Americans, that are going to be flying to Rotterdam, which is where it starts in the Netherlands, and then it cruises through the fjords of Norway, and it winds up with three beautiful ports of call in Iceland. And Iceland is one of the hottest cruise destinations in the world right
So
now.
is this cruise sold out?
The cruise is, I think that you probably could get a cabin, but it's basically sold out. And we already have our 2026 that went on sale earlier this month, and that's sold out for next year. That one is South
Wow.
America, Brazil, and Argentina, and what was the other? Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. Yes.
Iceland and Norway have always been on my list of places to go.
It's nice.
Cool. Very cool.
It's a beautiful situation to be able to take these guests on these journeys. We have a ton of musicians and artists. We have a really nice, interesting cross section of younger talent and veterans as well. And I think the people that our cruise community, that's the one thing that I'm most proud of, you guys, is the community of artists and musicians and fans that all kind of come together. It's a melting pot. There's Republicans and Democrats and old and young and gay and straight and all different racial and religious divides. Everybody, all those lines that normally in typical life separate us, everybody's brought to these cruises because of their shared love of music. And because of that, all of those lines just fade away and everybody's just vibing with each other and enjoying each other and supporting each other and respecting each other.
That's
Uh,
very cool.
and that's because of the music.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is your ship bigger than Chris Bodie's ship?
Size is not as important to me as it is to you, Mark.
I heard he has one, but for the right price, we make that ship go down and you take over. Don't worry about it. But also, what about a summer tour? Because don't you do summer tours? And obviously, every year we see a Christmas tour. You're never home. You're on boats. You're on summer cruises, summer tours, Christmas tours.
I have wanderlust for sure. But I just want to say about Chris, I love Chris. He's one of my
I
dear
remember
friends.
I met him with you. He's a nice guy.
Incredible musician and an incredible person and smart as can possibly be. And I'm happy for his success.
Smaller boat, but no, you're a nice guy.
Yes, we have a summer tour. It's going to be happening right after our cruise ends, and that's our Summer Horns tour.
Right. And that's
We
a
have
great show too. I've enjoyed that.
full horn section this year. It's basically the ultimate summer party jam. All of your horn section favorites, and this is the era that I grew up listening bands like Tower of Power and Chicago and Earth, Wind and Fire and Kool and the Gang and Ohio Players, and this is the music that for this audience will just never go out of style. People love this music so much, and
Yeah.
so this is a chance for us. We do it every other year, and it's a chance for us to bring that music to life and add our own arrangements to it, and also new songs as well. And it's a fun, fun tour. Can't wait for this summer.
And the
That's very
Christmas tour
cool.
will continue as well.
Which one?
The Christmas tour.
Yeah, Christmas. We're for a nice Jewish boy, we're going to be
Right.
doing our 28th annual
Wow.
Christmas tour
And
this
we
year.
see that every year, and it's incredible. Every year, it's just as good as the year before, and it gets better and better.
Well, I count on the fact that you can't remember.
Well, I mean, my only concern was there was a little too much saxophone, but other than that, I mean, the tour was really good. The show was great.
Well,
I gotta
Nice
say,
Jewish
Mark, I
guy.
think Dave just had the funny of the show.
He's a funny, talented man. So, Dave, should we let you go because you got important stuff to do? But after we stop recording, I ask that you stay there a minute because somebody wants to say hello to you. We've got a big fan club in this family, and we should say that Dave's been a family favorite of our son, our daughters. Of course, my wife loves him. What's not to look at that face? They love him. And I remember a funny story when we all went to eat, remember? And somebody, I think, asked you for an autograph at the table. And my son said, I think you remember the funny line, the famous line. He said, "Well, he signs the autograph. Do they comp the meal?" Remember that? That's a Rizzo. Always thinking.
That is a
Christopher at the
Rizzo
time.
right there.
That was pretty
He's
funny.
probably like 6 or 7 years old at the time.
They comped the meal.
So
He
funny.
thought of that. That was pretty funny.
I don't think
Two
they comped it.
guys, two guys
No,
and
I
a
don't think
mic
they
are
comped it.
two guys and a mic. Our special guest has been Dave Koz. Dave, thank you so much for doing this, and really appreciate it. And it's been fun getting to know you.
Well, I appreciate it, Jim. Thank you very much. Mark Riz has told me all about this for a long time, and then I started listening and seeing what you guys were up to, and I'm very honored and very happy that I got a chance to be with you guys, and I wish you nothing but continued success with this podcast. You guys are great together.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Little less of Mark Rizzo, more Jim Ryan. That's what.
So now you're getting back to me because of the sax joke. I know. I see where this is going. But you are
Two
very
guys and a mic.
successful. You're very talented. I'm proud to call you my friend. You're an unbelievable artist. And hey, with Sanborn gone, you're number one. You know that's
Just unbelievable. I love you, Mark Rizzo.
Don't hang up. You can stop the recording, but don't go anywhere.
Two guys and a mic. Find us on YouTube and every other place you find podcasts. Again, Dave, thanks so much.
Thank you.